Should Biden have dropped out sooner?
Yes, ma'am.
It should have been irrelevant when he dropped out. The idea that we don't primary an incumbent president was a lie. It was promulgated on purpose. I'm old enough to remember when Eugene McCarthy primaried Lyndon Johnson. Robert Kennedy Sr. primaried Lyndon Johnson. Nobody thought it was weird. We just thought it was democracy.
Your job was to inform the American people about what was going on in this country. But instead of informing the American people about what's going on in this country, you asked the same kind of gotcha questions that I am so sick and tired of hearing from journalists in this country.
It seems like the DNC is ushering in well-needed new blood and leadership, at least in parts of the country. And those new leaders were not shy about saying, and at times yelling, all of the things I know I personally, and I'm sure you as well, have been yelling at your computer or TV screens. And just wait until you hear how passionate and on point some of these people were with their righteous indignation at the committee's practices. And trust me, I know it all comes off as too little too late at this point, but as we'll see, there is at least a spark of hope from the powerful rants these people went on. It showed the DNC's future members are fed up with the committee's bullshit and are looking to make monumental changes. You see, the Democratic National Committee and Politico co-hosted an in-person candidate forum for DNC officer elections in Detroit, Michigan that was focused on the Midwest region. The forum was moderated by Politico journalists, was held yesterday, and featured candidates for chair, vice chair of civic engagement and voter participation, secretary, treasurer, and national finance chair. First, let's take a listen to this epic rant from author and political activist Marianne Williamson.
Incumbent senators and congresspeople and mayors are primaried all the time. That was very important, by the way, because their primarying Johnson got Johnson to drop out. The problem was the DNC saying, oh, we're not going to have a primary, and we see our role as supporting the president's renomination, once again, in contradiction to their own bylaws. And the fact that so many traditional Democratic voters went along with this. We used to be the party of the free thinkers. Anyone who's ever taken civics class in the 7th grade knows you're not a spoiler if you're in a primary. For a year and a half, the Republicans were giving their message, and we were silent because the DNC was acting like a suppressant. Nobody can talk. We all have to vote for Joe Biden. We all have to vote for Joe Biden. Why? Because the DNC said so. Why? And the fact that people had such a codependent thrall, if I'm the leader of the DNC, I don't want you to feel you have to do whatever I say. We don't have a king in the White House, and we don't have an elite at the DNC who's supposed to be determining what Democrats are thinking. The fact that we're messy is part of the strength of the Democratic Party. The fact that we all have different ideas is our strength. And if we had had a primary, if people had shown up, if people like myself hadn't been thrown off ballots, and our campaigns infiltrated and de-amplified on television stations such as MSNBC and CNN, where if you're not there, the Democratic electorate doesn't even know you exist, then we would have worked it out. The Democrats would have worked it out. We would have spent a year and a half. What are we going to do to beat Trump? What are we going to do to beat Trump? The Democratic Party, by suppressing that primary, opened the door and let Donald Trump walk in.
But let me ask those on the stage here.
Yeah. And it only gets better from there. More of her in a second, but take a listen to the next gentleman who chimed in as he rightly points the finger right back at the mainstream media.
Show of hands, does anyone disagree with Ms. Williamson on her point about the process? Does anyone on the stage disagree with Ms. Williamson about the process? Mr. Paul.
Our problem is we trusted you all. Your job was to inform the American people about what was going on in this country. But instead of informing the American people about what's going on in this country, you asked the same kind of gotcha questions that I am so sick and tired of hearing from journalists in this country. Joe Biden did a good job as president. He got good things done. And none of you ever said it because you wanted to ask, what's wrong with Joe Biden today? What's wrong with Joe Biden today? What's wrong with Joe Biden today? And because the media didn't inform the American people about what was going on, it became impossible impossible for us to get any message out. And because we couldn't get any message out, nobody knew what we did. And that's why we lost the damn election. It is your people's fault, and I'm sick of it. I'm sorry.
Ms. Williamson?
If I had $1 billion, I would take CNN and MSNBC to court. And I would ask, not that I would win that case, but I would ask, did someone from the DNC have a conversation with you about de-amplifying any candidates, even qualified candidates other than Joe Biden? It shouldn't qualify. The political media industrial complex in this country calls a qualified candidate someone who is qualified to perpetuate the system as it is. The people have rejected that system. Qualifications have been determined by James Madison. If you were born here, if you're 35 years or older, and if you have lived here for 14 years, you are qualified. I'd also like to add that myself, not a political insider, that is my qualification. That's the good news, not the bad news. Somebody who's seeing things from a different perspective,
Mr.
with a
Wickler,
different set of
let me ask you this. Do you believe Biden should have been the nominee? And do you think that the process that Ms. Williamson is criticizing was the wrong way to do this thing?
I will say, we're 4 days away from Trump's inauguration.
Yeah.
And we can disagree about all kinds of things about the past, but the fundamental question is, what do we do now? And what we need to do is we need to unite and fight for working people against an administration that is going to try to divide us and rip us all off.
And this is all incredibly true and incredibly important, because as the next gentleman caps it off, however shitty we may feel about what's going on here, our two options, folks, are to either lay down and take the dismantling of our democracy as a given, or to fight the fuck back.
Now, we're going to have a primary in 2028. And my commitment as chair, and I hope everyone's commitment, if any of us is elected chair, is to have a process that gives everyone a fair shake, that gives everyone a shot, that is neutral from the perspective of the DNC, so that it is voters who are making the decision. And as we set our primary calendar, I don't think a DNC chair should be putting their thumb on the scale. I think we should ask DNC members to hear states out as they make their case, and we should set a calendar that gives everyone a chance, chooses a winning nominee, and honors our traditions and our coalition. That is a decision the DNC has to make going forward, because we don't have a time machine. The other decision we have is whether we lie down or whether we stand and fight. And that is the decision that we need to answer with an affirmative battle cry, because the battle is about to be upon us.
And they're all right. I mean, it is incredibly cathartic to hear, hopefully, what is the new leadership of the Democratic National Committee talking about how they fucked up, talking about how they didn't listen to American people, to their workers, to their committee members, and how they steamrolled the democratic process yet again, just to deliver us the utmost worst outcome possible. And that is the type of self-reflection and future-focused thinking that we need. The pity party's over. We had our time. Donald Trump's going to be inaugurated on Monday. That's the facts. But I would much rather move forward with a Democratic National Committee that's committed to listening to its members.
I'm more interested in the people who can't make it on just one job. I'm interested in the people who are selling their plasma in order to survive. I'm interested in the people who are so underinsured or uninsured that they are putting GoFundMe pages on the internet for life-saving operations for themselves and their children.
Dr. Hathaway,
we have to get back to the humanitarian mission of the Democratic Party.
Taking on the mainstream media and being honest about its faults and flaws. And if that's something you agree with, consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, because this is the type of work that we as independent media here at Really American are committed to for the long haul. And that dog outside my apartment vehemently agrees. Thanks for watching, folks. We are all in this together, and we could not be doing this without your support. For Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse, and I'll see you all in the next one.